I know they announced a bond in the Carroll case, around $90 million in the Carroll case this week. Any closer to getting a bond in the real estate case? And you're right, it's a judgment, not a settlement. No agreement made in that case.
Yeah, no, I unfortunately I can't speak to that. That's privileged, and I am the attorney, one of the attorneys on that case. But like I said, the judgment's absurd, and the fact that we're even talking about this, Martha, is absurd. And I hope that the appellate division will do the right thing here, as we've seen them do a few times before.
That's so helpful. Always glad to see Alina Habba on the news to reveal nothing, to answer none of the questions that she knew she'd be asked. The only reason she was brought on was to answer those questions, and she, of course, won't do that. And I get, sometimes things are privileged, but you can't just say that it's privileged when there's no reason that it would be privileged. Now, I know that she may not be sure of that because she's only barely a lawyer, but has there been any progress in getting the bond? That's privileged. Is it in general terms? Like, I'm not saying that you're gonna blow up the spot of someone who's considering underwriting it specifically, but you can't even talk about whether you're getting closer. We are rocketing towards the deadline. He only has a couple more weeks. You can't give us even a vague idea of whether he's gonna be able to do that, because it's not like there aren't high stakes. If he can't, and you're not reassuring us that he can actually make good on the bond, then his buildings could be seized in less than 2 weeks. So, okay, that's not a bad thing from my point of view, but you're on Fox News to reassure the right, and you're not doing that. Once again, Alina Habba refusing to do the job. But anyway, the first bond has actually been submitted and accepted. That's on the Eugene Carroll trial. So a $92 million bond. We had previously talked about the fact that it was being offered, but now the judges actually accepted it. So that one's out of the way. Bear in mind, that's kind of the easy one. I mean, $100 million isn't nothing, but it's not $500 million. That said, there are still some lingering questions about that first bond, because it's good now, nothing's gonna be done about that. And the good thing is that if Donald Trump's appeals process is either doesn't actually get off the ground, if it's not accepted, or if he fails upon the appeal, this now means that Eugene Carroll almost certainly can get the money, because it's no longer up to Donald Trump to hand it over. Now it's those who are underwriting the bond, which in this case is Chubb. And I'm so glad that it's Chubb. But anyway, this is a big corporation, and when it was announced that they were the ones that were gonna be underwriting this bond, a lot of people wondered why? Like, that seems like a weird thing to do. This is kind of a divisive topic. Why is it that you'd want to step in? Well, Evan Greenberg is the CEO of Chubb, and he said in a letter to investors and customers just yesterday that the company's $91.6 million appeals bond given to Trump had, quote, nothing to do with the underlying merits or with favoring any of the parties in the defamation case. He said Chubb is in no way supporting Trump, although they are literally financially supporting him. I mean, that's just what words mean, but okay, we're moving on. And added that the company is supporting it as, quote, part of the justice system plumbing involved in the case. Now look, if what he means by that is that Donald Trump and his legal defense is a whole lot of poop, then maybe it makes sense that you're talking about the fact that you're part of the justice system plumbing. And you can say, like, you can make the case, this isn't about Donald Trump. This isn't about Eugene Carroll. This is kind of easy money, okay? We underwrite the bond. We get several $1 million as sort of like a fee or commission on this. It potentially generates even more money in interest. So we could end up, sure, it's basically an investment. We're gonna make $10 million, $15 million. You could say that. He's kind of implying that without actually saying it, which makes me, and I think a lot of other people, wonder if he's being honest. And if in fact this is a guy who perhaps likes Donald Trump, wants to support Donald Trump, or perhaps wants Donald Trump's support in the future, using not his money to help out Donald Trump, and not to just donate to him, but doing one of the weird things that's totally legal in our system, which is you effectively have provided $100 million to Trump. And it's not a campaign donation. It's totally legal to do this. Donald Trump totally owes you, and we're just supposed to be okay with that. He could never write a check to Trump's campaign for $91.3 million. He couldn't use Chubb money to do that, but he could effectively give the guy the money and maybe not even charge that interest. And that's just totally cool. So look, maybe this is reassuring to the investors and to the customers of Chubb. If I were one of them, it wouldn't be. I would have further questions. Hopefully they will. He says to close that the firm understands how polarizing and emotional the case is and how easy it would have been for Chubb to decline doing business with Trump, noting that it supports the rule of law and still believes it did the right thing. Again, yes, it would have been very easy to not do it. Every other corporation in the world didn't do it. You're the only one who did do it, so it would have been super simple. And you still believe you did the right thing. You haven't really explained how that's the right thing. Like this isn't, we're not talking about like whether you have a right to a trial. Like we all agree that even if you seem super guilty, you have a right to a trial. You have a right to representation. You have a right to a variety of things. You don't necessarily have a right to a massive corporation underwriting your bond so you can file a baseless appeal against E.G. and Carroll. So I don't know. I come from, I guess, a different school of thought than Greenberg. But anyway, in terms of the interest that it's generating, it is increasing by more than $111,000 every single day. A good portion of $1 million a week. By the time we get to the hush money case, it will be nearly $2 million higher. And that is just wild. And as of right now, he is still trying unsuccessfully to delay the other judgment, the one that Alina Habba wouldn't talk about. He has until March 25th to stay that, meaning that he would need to put up the money, the assets, or a bond for this one by that point. And if he fails to do so, Letitia James, the AG of New York, has already said that she is going to start seizing his assets. And that is now just 11 days away. And just in case you've forgotten some of these, that is not the entirety of all the money that Donald Trump owes people. There's other sums as well. So he owes E.G. and Carroll $5 million for the initial judgment over the sexual assault, as well as the initial case having to do with defamation. It's easy to forget that the more than $90 million one, that's the second one. And there might be future ones, but he also owes money there. He owes $400,000 to the New York Times, thousands of dollars for gag order violations, and nearly $400,000 to Orbis Business Intelligence, the consulting firm owned by former British intelligence officer Christopher Steele. Now, those sums for him, it's probably like a rounding error. I don't think he particularly cares about it, but it's a reminder that when he baselessly sues people, it doesn't often go his way because he's not listening to his lawyers. He's launching into these lawsuits based purely off of emotion. It's a knee-jerk thing, and that's why he so frequently loses and has to hand over huge sums of money. But in any event, we're gonna set aside the fraud stuff and the other bonds. We'll know within 2 weeks whether he can back it or whether Trump Tower gets seized. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.